That's how it's gonna be, a little test tube.
It's most likely to be a highly infectious virus.
Guy steps out of Times Square station, smashes it on the sidewalk.
Welcome to Zero Net Review, a show dedicated to handcrafted studies of genre fiction. I'm author DC McNeil, and I'm joined by Patrick Laverne, a highway bandit with a pipe here. He's gonna take your stuff.
Unless you're an old man, in which case I got no beef with you.
That's very true. And as always, J.M. Anderson, an old, blind, crazy man soon to perish from starvation. Just kidding, it's a character from the book.
Yeah, I'm not wasting away anytime soon. That's for sure.
That's for sure. Welcome back to our continued study of the post-apocalypse genre, brought to you by the Zero Indent Patreon subscribers who help make the shows and articles that shape Zero Indent. What better way to... Nope, this is from... I didn't edit that. That's... Okay, hold on. Today, we read from page 99 to page 199. That's specifically in the Pickles Collection edition of The Road. Once again, pretty strong disclaimers for the topics in this episode. It's just grim. There's nothing particularly that I want to call out as like a trigger warning here, or as a content disclaimer, other than the book is really sad. So, yeah, Cormac McCarthy really just... yeah. Hey, I mean, there's some good stuff in this reading. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that I suppose.
There's like a good 72 hours that's also stressful.
Oh yeah. When they find the shelter, yeah.
Yeah, when they find the shelter.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the end of the previous episode, because we'd been going for 1,000 hours, JM like provocatively was like, I don't know, this book is too sad. I don't want to read it. And we both went, yeah, that's the point. That's what the book is trying to do. Like, that's the point of the book. I'm curious where you both find yourselves now on this novel, at this kind of like tipping point of, you can feel in the writing process that McCarthy doesn't really have a plan here, right? And this part of the novel is really where it starts to feel like now he has to figure out like what the book is trying to do, right? That's what clearly what the last third is going to be, is like, what does he decide to do with these characters? What fate do they have? And I certainly felt that after they left the shelter, I had a much harder time like getting through the material. Not because it was necessarily sad, like the whole thing is sad, but the pacing I found really challenging in this reading, where it was quick to read, but I was sort of reading in like stops and starts, as opposed to the first section where I just kind of, it was very rhythmic and it was very electric. So yeah, I'm curious where you guys land on this kind of middle section of the book.
I thought it was still quite like rhythmic for me. There was, I don't know, there was always something interesting, something compelling going on. It's still just as like, it's still just like a nightmare, basically. I felt like, I don't know, it narrows its, or like it focuses its themes a bit more. I feel like stuff about, the rapture and the end of the world, and the use of goodness, or like how useful goodness is and morality is, and what a world devoid of any like structure is, and of course like the actual dilemma that it seems to be setting up for the main character, which is, does he have the will to shoot the kid before anything bad happens to him? So yeah, I don't know, as far as like novels, like, the structure of a novel goes, I like where it's going. I feel like it's going to have a cool climax.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, is like, do you have a shot to call in so far as like where you think it's going to try and go with these characters?
Yeah, I think exactly that. I think he's going to have to make a choice. But like, I don't think it's going to be he shoots the kid or he doesn't shoot the kid. I think it's going to be something in between, something a bit more nuanced. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But probably some sacrifice will have to be made, as per, story rules.
I think that the contemporary novel would have the man, and this is like the kind of, this would be a suggestion informed by like the kind of capital moment that we live in. Like you and I were talking about the ending of Death Stranding 2 the other day, and the kind of like the passing of the buck that tends to happen in this model, where it's like, oh, we need a protagonist to replace the protagonist. I think the contemporary novel would be like the man would sacrifice himself for the kid, and then the epilogue would be from the kid's perspective, kind of thing. I think that McCarthy's a bit cannier than that. I don't remember how the novel ends, but I'm fairly confident that's not the maneuver he uses. What about you, JM? Are you still real cold?
Depending. So this reading, I did the entire thing in one evening. It was much easier for me to get through it because by this point I've just adapted to the style of writing, and the prose isn't bothering me nearly as much as it did in that first reading. So no, for the most part, I just kind of blasted through this one. And yes, the still like overall opinion is a question of why, even though there's parts of it that were like them being in like the bunker is storytelling that stood out and is memorable. So there's, that means there was something good in it for me to retain that in my mind, right? So there's definitely value somewhere in there, but for like the book as a whole, I still stand with I don't understand what the point of it is. End of statement.
I mean, art being an emergent property of the human need to express oneself is always a tricky thing.
Well,
because your mileage is going to vary. Like genuinely, like I don't say that flippantly. Like genuinely, there is just art where you're going to experience it and go, "Why did we bother?" And that's cool to me. Like that's like the fact that you can have that reaction. Having that reaction to the road is crazy to me because it is like so. It's so visceral in its approach, but I completely empathize with that. Yeah, this is going to be a tough one. All right, so we've got about 100 pages here. So from page 99 to page 199 in the Picador Collector's Edition. The thing I would say, if you're not reading along, I do want to try and convey like the sense of this reading, which is kind of three things happen. And it's much less backstory and scene setting than the previous kind of, the opening. The opening is very much like, okay, we need to paint a picture of like how this guy got here, but not directly. This is much more concerned with like the material realities of like their survival and how they're going to like do this thing, which is surviving. And then also you kind of start to get morality poking its head toward the end of this reading where they come across the old man. And our subjective character, the man, starts to some of his what felt like moral authority in the first reading that we did starts to loosen a little bit, where the boy starts to make some pretty good points that I think are difficult to argue against, even if the man is being quite logical. So I guess I want to try and articulate the tension that's contained within this reading before we kind of get stuck in. So yeah. Summary time, Pat, when you're ready. Can we please hear my overly written summary?
The man and the boy are starving to death. It's really bad, like worse than before. We know this because the boy keeps asking if they're going to die. The man says no over and over again. The man breaks his rule and investigates a farmhouse, something up until that point he will not do for... The man breaks his rule and investigates a farmhouse, something up until this point he will not do for reasons we are not privy to. As he investigates, we become privy to the reason. Houses have other people in them. This house is an operating base for cannibals who keep livestock of people in their basements. The man is spotted by these cannibals and runs like hell. In a sequence that's a little confusing, the man and the boy escape the cannibals, and now they're starving for real. The man ventures off, chancing upon an underground water tank and shitloads of fresh apples. The man and the boy keep moving. The Reprieve short-lived, and now they're going to starve for real, for real. The man once again breaks his rule, and they investigate a blasted suburban family home. He finds a candle and a pair of pliers, nothing else. It's really bad. He's walking back from the shed and he has a psychic premonition and fetches a spade and uncovers an intact survival bunker. Also, just kidding about the psychic thing, he's just that delirious from hunger. They break into the bunker and it's full of food. They eat shitloads of canned peaches and meats and they have coffee. They even bathe and clean their clothes. The man shaves. They're people again for 5 minutes. It's like a whole different book, except that there's something up with the kid. He's being weird. The origin of this weirdness is never fully resolved. The man fashions some fake bullets from wood to make his gun appear loaded. He assumes, with no real evidence, he could have reloaded one type of ammunition in the bunker into ammunition that would work with his pistol. Knowing the bunker is not safe, they make a move with a new cart of food. The man makes a questionable choice. The man makes a questionable choice by insisting that they only take one cart of supplies with the boy on lookout. Is this the dumbest thing the man does all book? Maybe, but that's not a judgment for this summary to make at this time. The man and the boy are on the road once again. They come upon an old man who they help. Eventually, they narrowly avoid bandits, and the man gets sick, certain to die. That's all we read for today.
Now, one of the things that I was hopefully trying to convey with that reading is how fucking dire the beginning of this reading is. Like, it's not only that they're surviving, it's that, like, he's like, shit, I gotta break this rule. I gotta go to this farmhouse, yo. And he goes to the farmhouse, and he's like, there's a locked, like, basement. This is it. Like, it's locked for a reason. And the boy's like, hey, we absolutely should not fuck with this. And he's like, no, like, we have to do this or we're gonna die. And it's full of prisoners. Or it's full of naked people, I guess. And like these, they're people, like they're livestock, right? That's what they're being kept as. Is that the implication?
Probably.
Like I
don't know.
I don't know, but it's, you know what I mean?
But like it's the kind of thing where like it could like it doesn't matter like really what they are, like you fully accept it, like that's the kind of thing that happens in this world, you know, whether they're like breeding stock or eating stock, you know, it's like same diff. They're not being treated nice.
Jam has a look.
No, I started to make a joke that like livestock are people too, and then it was just too sad, and I just gave up.
That's fair. Yeah, doing bits on these episodes is hard. Yeah.
Before we keep going, for anyone who has that version, which I showed before, the page numbers are way different. So we're from page 94 to page 187.
Yeah, and
so they're from page 99 to 199, and I'm from page 94 to 187.
Okay. And I won't even talk about the EPUB because I've since purchased the second version of the EPUB, and the page numbers are even more different in that one. So confusing. I think it's because of the formatting of the book, and like the fact that it doesn't have traditional chapters. I think means that when print publishers have to convert the templates designed for print publishing to e-publishing, it just doesn't track. And like I can see, because I've done that before, like for the books that we publish, and like I could see this would be a difficult one to set out for the EPUB. But yeah, this is the section that we get where he says he took the pistol from his belt and tried the door. It swung slowly in on its great brass hinges. They stood listening. Then they stepped into a broad foyer floored in a domino of black and white marble tiles. A broad staircase ascending. Fine Morris paper on the walls, water-stained and sagging. The plaster ceiling was bellied in great swags, and the yellow dental molding was bowed and sprung from the upper walls. To the left through the doorway stood a large walnut buffet in what must have been the dining room. The doors and the drawers were gone, but the rest of it was too large to burn. They stood in the doorway. Piled in a window in one corner of the room was a great heap of clothing. Clothes and shoes, belts, coats, blankets, and old sleeping bags. He would have ample time later to think about that. The boy hung to his hand. He was terrified. They crossed to the foyer, to the room on the far side, and walked in and stood. A great hall of a room with ceilings twice the height of the doors. A fireplace with raw brick showing where the wooden mantel and surround had been pried away and burned. There were mattresses and bedding arranged on the floor in front of the hearth. And this is him basically beginning to piece together like that something is up here. And then a little bit later you get and I'll read up to the point where this gets really distressing. He started down through the rough wooden steps. He ducked his head and then flicked the lighter and swung the flame out over the darkness like an offering. Coldness and damp, an ungodly stench. The boy clutched at his coat. He could see part of a stone wall, clay floor, an old mattress darkly stained. He crouched and stepped down again and held out the light. Huddled against the back wall were naked people, male and female, all trying to hide, shielding their faces with their hands. On the mattress lay a man with his legs gone to the hip and the stumps of them blackened and burned. The smell was hideous. Jesus, he whispered. Then one by one they turned and blinked in the pitiful light. Help us, they whispered. Please help us. Christ, he said. Oh, Christ. He turned and grabbed the boy. Hurry, he said. Hurry. He dropped the lighter. No time to look. Yeah. Pretty
It's
grim.
pretty dark.
Yeah. McCarthy really going for the gross out, I think, in a way that Stephen King always tries to do and rarely lands. You know what I mean? Like, it's got that type of vibe.
This brings up a lot of questions. Well, first of all, I just want to draw a comparison between this and that first Walking Dead Telltale game, where, spoilers for that game, but like in the second part, you go to a farm and then you find out, and then one of your friends goes missing at the beginning of the act, and he's like, oh, where is he? And then at the end of the act, you find out that they've like kidnapped him, chopped off his legs to eat, and they've like hidden him in a room in their house. It's like, yeah, very very similar. People get very diligent with their cannibalism in the apocalypse, it seems.
Yeah, authors love this thing of like, yeah, if you're gonna eat people in an apocalypse, you're gonna do it with some level of cunning and guile.
But also like, okay, so you know, apocalypse, like, vaguely, it's been going on for about a decade, it seems, maybe around that. And then like, what are these people doing before that? Like, do they just, you know, like, this is gonna sound absolutely fucking terrible, but like, what, bro? You just let yourself get kidnapped? Like what were they doing before this? Were they not survivors? Like, I feel like, I don't know, like, you know, maybe you'd have to. Obviously, you can be like beaten down into any sort of like condition, but like, if you've made it this far into the apocalypse and then suddenly you're like the prisoner of, I feel like people would be wily enough to figure out a way out of that basement, you know, if you weren't chained up or something. But then you think about how scary the people who holding them must be, what sort of tactics they use, you know, what sort of like torture and fear and stuff like that they must. I don't know, just the imagining the dynamics and the relationships between like people, you know, these two different people were like, it's terrifying, and yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's part of the part of what I find really I guess I'll use the word scary, but like part of the thing that I find like existentially kind of dreadful about McCormack's sort of imaginary here is that McCarthy, I did the McCormack thing again. It keeps happening. Maybe I just have to accept that that's how I think of him in my head. But part of what's happening here is like he's imagining that there is and you kind of get this shot through from the man's reflection on the end of the world, where he talks about like these kind of refugees. Like he sort of in his mind, he's separated like survivors, bandits, and refugees into like different epistemic categories almost, where he's like the survivors are people that like him and the boy, where they don't give over their morals. Refugees are victims to be preyed upon by the cannibals, and cannibals are enemies for survivors to deal with. And it's almost like there's this kind of there's a formal thing happening where I think McCarthy imagines that there is a type of person who isn't willingly victimized, but they may have already been a victim in some way before everything went wrong, or that like I don't know, he kind of imagines the human spirit as like quite a fallible thing to break. And we can maybe draw the line back to the Catholicism thing, right? Like it's a fallible thing to break in his imaginary when, you know, it's a godless country and when God has gone when God has gone from the world type of thing. There's some piece of what it means to be a person that he sees, or that he draws for us here as lost in the absence of a god, right? And the man has the boy who he thinks of as a god, and that's the only reason he's able to not be someone willing to capture these people. But the fact that they're able to be captured is almost, I think you could make a pretty clean reading that it's because there's no god, right? Like, and that's a really I find that a really insufficient comprehension of reality, right? And it's, to me, it's quite a sad it's the, you know, that Georgia Mac lyric of like, if you need to believe in like, you know, a heavenly reward for doing good deeds, then you're not a good person, right? Like it's that kind of yeah, that's kind of how I see it anyway. Like that he's doing something there in that space. Is my feeling.
I like how, yeah, like in stories like The Walking Dead, for example, the thing that everyone has to overcome, like everyone, and you know, it's sort of like a given assumption that if you're 5 years into the apocalypse, everyone has done this, is to overcome like vulnerability. Like you need to, you know, you need to have been blooded at that point. If you have survived up until that point, you've probably killed someone, is like sort of like, you know, the assumption or whatever. And yeah, this story seems to be like, no, that's not the case at all. Like, you know, some vulnerable people do survive the apocalypse, and like, yeah, sometimes they, you know, that's a threshold that you never cross. Like, yeah, and as you say, the world is divided into, you know, predator and prey, that kind of thing, and then other wanderers who are trying to survive, like the guy and the kid.
The reading that I have off of that is, I mean, the the basic ideas are the same, but when they met that one cannibal, the first thing that the dude did was he was trying to like get the man and the kid to willingly come over to the truck. He was, you know, he was like pretending to be friendly, and he was like, oh, we need a doctor, you need a doctor, you could help patch this guy up. He was just doing whatever he could to get them to willingly come over. So I think that the idea with these people who are all locked up in this cellar is that these are the people who still trust. These are the people who still believe in human civility. So they are the ones who are captured. The man and the boy represent the people who no longer trust and no longer believe in what humanity, what the you know, commune of humanity used to represent. And so the people who are locked up are, I mean, they're separated in the way that y'all were describing, but I don't think it's anything to do with like religion or anything like that. It's just trusting and believing that these people still have the morals of a civilization that doesn't exist anymore.
And that's like the super tragic thing, is that like, you know, every time you run into a person on the road, you hope it's that kind of person, but it's always not. Every type of that person has been snatched by the predators. And so you're always, so like, it's totally 1000% justified whenever you see a new person, you just assume that they're a predator, and like, you know,
yeah, it's it's late game DayZ lobbies, right? Like you have to shoot on sight because the chances of that person being willing to shoot you in the back is really high. But part of the tragedy, right, and part of the thing that's difficult to communicate here is that all of this is happening and all of these complicated thoughts are being contended with by the man. And he has to also deal with the fact that the boy is reacting to this stuff and can't process it and can't comprehend it because he's a child, right? Like, there's that awful exchange afterwards where they run away And he's like, stop crying. Like, do you understand? And the boy's like, no, I don't understand. And then he goes, no, just say yes. Just say yes, I understand, Papa. And the boy says, yes, I understand. And then the man immediately goes, no, you don't. Like, there's this. he just, every tool that he has is insufficient to dealing with the larger context of this problem, which is like the existential thing in front of him. And then he starts to spiral, where he's like, okay, but shit, like, can I do it when the time comes? What if the gun jams? What if it's too wet to fire? No, it has to fire. Like, it'll work. Like, could you just, crush his skull with a rock? Like, he just, he starts to sort of, he starts to wonder what he would have to become to protect the boy from these people, and it's maybe to become something worse than these people, right? He would have to empty himself out so completely that he may as well be these people in order to mercy kill his son. And the line that I think is brilliant is he says, "The soul is quick." It's such an evocative combination of words, and the soul is quick. Like, there's a you can read that line about 10 or 15 different ways should you want to. But I found that in particular so evocative to these questions, right? The soul is quick, it changes quickly, or the soul is quick, it can escape most problems, or the soul is quick, it takes nothing to, extinguish it from the body. There's so many ways that you can try and get behind and around the man's thinking here, but yeah, it's just, it's fucking dire stuff, truly.
The beginning of this section where they're going through the house, I also thought that, again, that this was hinting that the kid is not real, because the kid is freaking out so much, and I don't know why, because they've gone in and they've looked in other houses, but with this house, the kid is like, we can't be here, we have to go, this is scary, I'm terrified, we can't be here. And I'm like, okay, so this is the guy's inner, like, not inner conscience, but it's like something is cluing him in that, like, this is a trap, or that there's bad guys around or something, but it's being funneled through the kid for some reason.
Well, not to be the, like, hold my beer guy again, but they do, the only other house they've been into was the man's childhood home, and the boy is freaking out the whole time when they do that, because he's made this rule, which is they don't go into houses, right? You get this reflected a little bit later when he gets so desperate. Like, the reason they're in this house in the first place is that they are literally starving in real time, right? Like, it's that it's that sketch thing that you linked us, JM, where it's like their meter is really at the bottom and they're really, really desperate. And he's made this rule about these houses because houses potentially contain other people. And similar to, like, the waterfall, they're points of interest and inflection where you might encounter other people. So I would say that it's textually pretty consistent, that every time they go into a house, up until this point, the boy is freaking out in equal measure, I feel. And by the time they go to the next house, he's so on the edge of starvation that he's literally doesn't have the energy to have that kind of animated panic.
Yeah, I mean, if you're growing up in the apocalypse and you're traveling all the time, houses like have the exact opposite meaning that they do to us. Yeah. Yeah.
But there's this, like, kind of, and there's this post-apocalypse thing happening where in another story, a house would be like in Station 11, for example, a house is an opportunity to find stuff, right? Like, you get your loot action happening in a house in a Station 11 type apocalypse, you're going to find, like, a tin of beans, maybe, like, a sweater or something, or, like, some stuff that you can use to chop up to make costumes with type of vibe. Here, it's like everything is gone. Like,
yeah, I love that detail. Yeah. Yeah. Because, yeah, like, I don't know, like, humans are pretty, like, comprehensive and imaginative, and, like, if, yeah, over a few passes over many years, like, that shit's gonna be picked clean. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's just nothing's growing because of this, like, ash that falls upon everything, right? Like this at the start of this reading, like the trees are just falling down.
Is that after they escape from the house?
I think it's before that. Let me check where I've highlighted.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was before as well.
Yeah, because I've written down what the fuck is happening in the marginalia. I don't. Yeah, what the fuck is happening with the trees? He scooped up the bedding and he folded it and wrapped the tarp around it. He looked up. The snow drifted into his eyes. The fire was little more than coals, and it gave no light. And the wood was nearly gone, and the trees were falling all about them in the blackness. Huh?
It's because the weight of the snow, was cracking the trees.
Oh, is that a
Because
thing?
all of the trees were, well, in this world where all of the trees are burnt and dead and barely standing up in the first place, in our world it'd be much more like storms where the wind is blowing, and that's when the broken dead trees would normally fall. So I logged that as real enough that it made sense, but I don't know if I've heard snow tree collapse in real life. Not that it couldn't be a thing.
Aren't they in the freshly burnt part? Like they was seeing forest fires days before. Aren't they like where that was? That's what I assumed.
Maybe. I guess my issue is like I lack sufficient snow lore to have guessed that's what was happening, because we don't live anywhere near where it snows. So I was like, I actually don't like. This was one of those sentences where I went, I have no idea what's actually happening in the book here. I wasn't sure if it was a metaphor.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty like evocative and descriptive. Like it really conjured up a very vivid scene in my head, like pitch black, hearing these like terrifying like creaks and snaps of huge fucking trees falling over, like, and the the giant shockwaves and stuff that you feel like, and you can't see anything. I thought that was like a great little sequence.
Oh yeah, the sequence is awesome and like it's really evocative. But what I meant was like, semantically, I literally went, I don't know what is actually happening here. Like, I couldn't tell if it was another, like, this thing is kind of a gesture in the way that some of this writing is, where he's saying things that they're supposed to be genuinely evocative and not true, or if this is, like, literally what's happening around them. Like, I couldn't tell if he was, it was more just, I didn't really understand the logistics of trees and snow enough to go, this is what's happening, which is really funny.
It's kind of like it's kind of like water, where everyone's like, oh, you could just jump out of the plane and land in the ocean and you'll be fine. Or if it's like there's a like tsunami coming at you, but it's only like 3 feet high, and you're like, oh, that's fine. It's just water. I'll be fine. But no, if water is running at you, it's going to hit you like concrete, and snow also weighs way more than you would expect. Living up in New York, when we were little, I remember Dad like being up on the roof and shoveling snow off of the roof because he was worried about the roof collapsing from the weight of the snow on it. So yeah. Now, my only argument against the possibility here is the fact that all of these trees were dead enough that they would, I'm assuming, like not have leaves on them and probably have a bunch of their limbs burned off and all of that, which means there's nothing there to catch the snow, so the snow couldn't accumulate enough to, be heavy enough to then cause the trees to collapse. Unless there's something, maybe they were falling because of like the extreme cold was doing some kind of, compression thing that was then causing the trees to pop and fall over. I don't know. But that's
part of what I love about this book, though, is like it so defies explanation that it almost feels like an omen, right? Like that's the quality that I think this really achieves, is like they're on the edge of starvation, and then this fucking omen around them of all these trees falling and dying in the snow, like they're about to themselves, right? Like it takes on a kind of a kind of tokenistic quality, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I felt that way about the guy struck by lightning at the beginning, like just like a very I don't know, notable incident, like some sort of event that
God really does hate me.
yeah.
Yeah, like legit. but yeah, and it's because nothing ever happens, right? And so all he ever ends up describing is all of the really bad or scary shit. Or in this reading, the one good thing that happens in this entire book, seemingly. Sorry, the second good thing, because we had the evening by the waterfall as well. So some wins. But yeah, the next kind of thing that I have that I don't understand, that I need you guys to explain to me, is the where he finds water and the apples. I don't understand what is going on here. And it's maybe because I read this too quickly or something. I don't know. But I have this on 76 of the EPUB. A creaking of tin somewhere high in the roof above him. There was yet a lingering odor of cows in the barn, and he stood there thinking about cows, and he realized they were extinct. Was that true? Could there be a cow somewhere being fed and cared for? Could there? Fed what? Saved for what? Beyond the open door, the dead grass rasped dryly in the wind. He walked out and stood looking across the fields toward the pine wood where the boy lay sleeping. He walked up through the orchard and then he stopped again. He'd stepped on something. He took a step back and knelt and parted the grass with his hands. It was an apple. He picked it up and held it to the light. Hard and brown and shriveled. He wiped it with the cloth and bit into it. Dry and almost tasteless, but an apple. He ate it in entire, seeds and all. He held the stem between his thumb and forefinger and let it drop. Then he went treading softly through the grass. His feet were still wrapped in the remnants of the coat and the shreds of tarp, and he sat and untied them and stuffed the wrappings in his pockets and went down the rows barefoot. By the time he got to the bottom of the orchard, he had 4 more apples, and he put them in his pocket and came back. He went row by row until he trod a puzzle in the grass. He'd more apples than he could carry. He felt out the spaces about the trunks and filled his pockets full, and he piled apples in the hood of his parka behind his head and carried apples stacked along his forearm against his chest. He dumped them in a pile at the door of the barn and sat there wrapped up his numb feet. And then, yeah, the bit I don't understand at all is like the cistern stuff. Like he finds like a tank of clean water or something under a house or underground or something.
Oh, is that what happens?
I don't fully understand the difference between a cistern and a well. Maybe the cistern is it's collecting rainwater and purifying it and then storing it in this container that he found. So whether it was doing that or whether it was like the it's drawing the water up from the earth, and then it's like pumped up and then stored in this container. Either way, it didn't really matter to me in the moment because it was just like, this is a thing that has water in it and it's clean water for the first time ever, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. It's like this relief, but I guess just like and this is part of the exercise of reading this book is like going, hey, what's actually happening? And I think it can be quite an interesting thing to try and contend with, right? He went back into the kitchen and got the broom and came out and swept the cover clean and set the broom in the corner and lifted the cover from the tank. Inside was a tray filled with a wet grey sludge from the roof mixed with a composite of dead leaves and twigs. He lifted out the tray and set it in the floor. Underneath was white gravel. He scooped back the gravel with his hand. The tank beneath was filled with charcoal, pieces burned out of whole sticks and limbs in carbon effigies of the trees themselves. He put the tray back. In the floor was a green brass ring pull. He reached and got the broom and swept the ash away. There were saw lines in the boards. He swept the boards clean and knelt and hooked his fingers in the ring and lifted the trapdoor and swung it open. Down there in the darkness was a cistern filled with water so sweet that he could smell it. He lay on the floor on his stomach and reached down. He could just touch the water. He scooted forward and reached again and laved up a handful of it and smelled it and tasted it and then drank. He lay there for a long time, lifting up the water to his mouth in palmful at a time. Nothing in his memory anywhere of anything so good. And like the charcoal is the hint to me that this is like a water purification system, where you're pouring water through the gravel, you know?
Yeah, all of that is because the the different levels of stuff are catching different amounts of debris and everything, and the charcoal should be the last like bit of it. But then also the way that the charcoal's described, I'm like, I don't know if that's fine enough, but also it didn't matter for me to figure. It's so backwards for me to be saying where like it didn't matter to me to figure this out because I'm the one that's like I have to figure out everything.
I've broken him.
But for me, I was
gentlemen.
like, yeah, I was like, water goes in thing. Man drinks water. That's all I need to know.
But it's seemingly rainwater as well, right? Because he's saying like the roof is filtered down. Like I think it's in theory like there's rainwater that's catching in the gutters that's coming down and it's getting filtered. And like this is probably a system that's existed well before the end of the world, right? This is a farmhouse. This all just makes this is really McCarthy has lived on farms like type of thing to think of. Because I would never have thought of this.
Why is the water sweet? Is that from the charcoal?
I think it's just clean.
Yeah, okay.
This is like in a Fallout game where you find like a clean bottle of water as opposed to an irradiated one. You know?
Well, yeah. Also, I mean that's. I guess this is connects to the apples thing as well. But like, he's drinking water from the sky, so supposedly, it's okay. It's not going to kill him. And there's fruit growing, which like, is that a spark of possibility that the world can recover? Who knows?
Okay, counter reading. The sky is blasted with ash, and you never see the sun, right? And when you do see the sun, it's like this pale imitation of the sun. So any rainwater is probably gonna carry all kinds of like shit in it. That's why the filtration system is so important. That's why it's sweet in comparison, right? And the apples are all rotten. They're eating rotten apples, right? They're brown.
They're just eating like not very nutritious apples.
Okay.
That's how I took it. But like, okay, yeah. So like the only thing that's like, like stopping water from being clean naturally is the ash in the air. There's not any sort of like radiation or anything, which is interesting.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Don't know. Seems bad, man.
It does seem bad.
There was a interesting like little biology thing, and I don't remember details, so everyone will just have to Google it. But like when you're really, really thirsty, there's something that actually makes water taste better to you, so that then you want to drink more of it. And anyone who's ever been really thirsty, you'll hear that same kind of wordplay where the water will taste sweet, even though it's like it doesn't have sugar in it, right? It doesn't taste the same, like water from the same source isn't like chemically different from one day to the next, but how dehydrated you are will make it taste different to you, because your body is trying to get you to consume more of it. So him like calling it sweet there is a very like real thing.
Apparently it's a hedonic reaction. And the way it works is that it's the parts of your body that are outside the blood-brain barrier. And they basically trigger a much larger dopamine response to water when you're thirsty. And it takes up to 30 minutes for that to actually like go away. So yeah, you're not wrong.
Love me some hedonic responses.
Yeah, we love it.
I love that David immediately was like, I don't know if we could trust him, so let's definitely look this up.
Yeah, you had such an incredulous look on your face when Dr. Jam said that.
It's because I got absolutely pasted in a recording me and JM did this week on the Raven that I was trying to catch him out. So yeah.
On the Raven?
Yeah, he was right about curtains being purple, and I was feeling a type of way about it. It's not important.
Okay.
Patreon.com/zeroindent if you want to listen to that discussion. It won't be out by the time you hear this, but it will be out soon. I just took a massive LPAT on like literature, which is a rarity for me. So I was in my feelings. I know. It was a real Kendrick Drake situation. Let me tell you. Yeah, the next thing I have is the the note in my marginalia here just reads, "Ugh, they're going to die, huh?" It's the bit where the boy and the man are talking. And the boy says, "We wouldn't ever eat anybody, would we?" The man says, "No, of course not." The boy, "Even if we were starving?" And then the man, "We're starving now." And then the boy goes, "You said we weren't." And he goes, "I said we weren't dying. I didn't mean we weren't starving, but we wouldn't. No, we wouldn't. No matter what. No matter what. Because we're the good guys, yes." And this is the line that I wanted to ask you guys about. And then he says, "And we're carrying the fire." And the boy responds, the boy says, "And we're carrying the fire." And then he says, "And we're carrying the fire." What?
Yeah, I had that mark too.
Fuck does that mean?
Yeah. Wow. It's like simple and not very so simple at the same time. I feel just like the fire, like sort of the humanity's soul. You know, the seed of redemption for humanity, that kind of thing. You know, by raising him in this particular image of, you know, not killing people, not eating people, you know, being the good guys. That's the spark that's carrying them through the darkest apocalypse that's ever been put to paper.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of went the Lives of the Saints and like the Prometheus route as well. Like Lives of the Saint, like, you know, the flame of God, right? Like the holy fire of heaven. And then also like, you know, Prometheus stealing the flame from the gods, right? There's kind of this way that and we're carrying the fire. Well, you know, if God is dead and he thinks of the boy as a god, but not the god, right? There's a, you know, that there's a way that he's kind of stolen the fire from heaven and is like carrying it within this boy as well, you know.
And this is after they've literally lost the fire. Their literal fire, because the dude dropped his lighter in the basement.
Yes, correct.
So that takes away all my ability to be very literal with this reading.
Perfect. He's finally done it. He's finally written a section that means that you have to interpret it metaphorically. You're welcome. So what do you think it means?
Well, I mean, the really odd thing is that it's the kid who is bringing this up, right? In every other instance, it's been the man who is talking about the kid in these metaphorical God, you know, terms. But now it's the kid that's saying we have the special. And I have formed no opinions on what it means.
I mean,
I'm not letting the book get to me.
It's presumably because the man has said this before, right? Everything that we know that the boy says is something the man has told him, because we know that that when the boy is very young, the wife takes her own life. And so basically anything that this kid thinks is something the man has said. So my immediate reaction was, oh, this is something that he's told the kid before, or he said on multiple occasions. And the kid is reflecting that back at him.
There have been several times where the man has no idea where the kid heard something from. Enough that it's, you know, what you just said now makes me question like all of those other times, like how much is the kid actually picking up from the man, and how much is the kid just knowing because he's secretly a god and this whole thing is like high fantasy and we don't know it.
Well, I think the first explanation is probably more likely to me.
Yeah, the man constantly forgetting things and like the lack of any markers to delineate time. The fact that he feels kind of insane half the time. They're always starving is probably more likely than this kid is the One Ring, is my feeling.
Well, I think it's funny, like, as well, just that, you know, the man asks, where did you learn that? Like, it was obviously you, bro. Like, there's no one else this kid interacts with. I thought it was like a bit of comedy.
But it's also like normative. That's normative, like parenting reaction to your kid saying something where you're like, wait a second, where the fuck did you? Who told you that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's something really mundane about it as well that I find really compelling. Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty sure this kid isn't the One Ring or actually a god, is what I would say. Having not remembered how this book ends, I can't say for sure, but
there's half the book left, bro. I'm just leaving myself open.
According to the EPUB, there's exactly 33% left. So I did a good job of cutting this. Next thing I've got in my notes is the house and the good 72 hours, which we can maybe talk about. Do you guys have anything else before then?
I think so.
Oh yeah, I've also just written in my notes here, like, they're freezing to death. They start freezing to death while they're starving to death because it starts raining. In brackets, God, this is rough.
Yeah, that was actually quite. That sparked a lot of questions in me, like imagination, because I was also thinking, man, apocalypses in Australia would be very different. Hey, like if you were in Brisbane, you'd never worry about freezing to death. You know, like
it'd be heat that would be the main concern, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, like, and I was just thinking, like, you know, fuck, it is fucking miserable, like, having wet clothes and wet socks when you're in a freezing, you know, climate.
Mm-hmm.
That would really, like, you know, apart from with everything going on, like, that would, like, just compound so much for me in terms of, like, dampening my spirit. Having wet clothes and fucking in the cold, like, yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, when we were in Europe last year, there was one night where we were camping with my cousins, and it was summer in the UK, bear in mind, and it was like 2 degrees Celsius at night. It rained the whole time, and it was like at that point I already had pneumonia, and it was just fucking miserable. And there's only so much whiskey you can drink before you're like, this hasn't helped. And I was thinking of that when I was reading this section, and I was like, oh my god, imagine this, but for like 10 years. You know, like, it would undo you mentally so quickly, I feel.
It's a perfect lead into something that I had marked. There was one line right before they get into the bunker. Is like right when the man's preparing to start hacking at the wood with the spade, and the kid says, "I'll hold the lamp." Okay, this is what the good guys do. They keep trying. They don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
That feels really, really poignant, because I swear this is the first time in the entire book so far that we have heard the phrase "we don't give up" or any hope of, like, not just laying down and dying, right? Like, this feels like it's the first sentence of actual hope in the entire book.
Right. Everything else has been oppositional to death, right? As opposed to a positive direction.
And there's nothing yet to give them hope, because they haven't gotten through to see what's in the bunker. So I don't know. It hit me really, really odd, because, like, this is what you would assume the man's telling himself every single night is, keep going, don't give up, keep going, don't give up.
I think that's the fire that it's talking about. Because who else in this world have we seen that has that? No one. So therefore, I think it makes sense that the fire that they've tasked themselves with is, like, hope for humanity, basically. No, he's from what we've seen in this world so far, he's pretty well suited to do that. Looking after a kid, sort of raising him, with morals and love and stuff like that. Like, where else have we seen that? Nowhere. And I feel like that is, that's like, that's the prize in this world. That's the gem to keep alive, and the fire to keep alive.
Well, and literally, they're the only people we've seen capable of making fire, right? Like that's interesting to me. That they don't come across like the ruins of other people's fires, and they don't see other people building fires in the night. The only other fire they see is caused by that strike of lightning.
No, the first cannibal group that they met, when they went back and they found the man's bones, they had been boiled. You have to have a fire in order to boil a person to eat them, right? And then the second...
I was just going to say, I think that you can square that circle by being like, you got like... Sorry, I want to be clear. The gesture I'm trying to make here isn't that they're literally the only ones capable of making fire, like flames, but rather that they are making fire in the traditional sense, right? Like from the, kindling and sticks and wood that they collect, like from the land. There's a purity to the fires that they make, as opposed to from like a some other instrument of that uses gasoline or butane or something.
I don't know. We could make that inference without more.
I'm doing it. I'm calling my shot. I think that's
like
the thing McCarthy's doing.
In that section, like, we have no clue what they used to start that fire. The guy that was down in the basement that had half of his legs gone, they had used fire to cauterize the wound so he wouldn't bleed out. How did they make their fire?
We're running into, I'm not being literal here again. The book only... the book makes a decision, and this is the question I'm going to put to you. The book makes a decision to only show the boy and the man building fires from the land. And when I say that, I don't mean that they don't use other methods of like heating and stuff, right? Because we get that in the bunker. But the book makes a very deliberate choice to not have other characters do this, and then to have the boy say, "And we carry the fire," right? And we're carrying the fire. That is McCarthy trying to do something, right? What do you think he's like? And this kind of circles back to the conversation we were having before. And I don't have a complete answer for this, but like, what do you think that he might be trying to do with that?
Well, can I jump in? What is a fire like? Symbolize, like, take them with the old man, like, just ahead. They look after him. They invite him to sit by their fire. It's like, something good, a positive thing. And other characters can make fire, sure, but like that's not what anyone else is doing. It's sort of like, symbolically, they're the only ones that are making fire, like having someone join them, looking after them.
Yeah, I think it's more the purpose of the fire, and not the like act of creating it or how it's created or anything else. But it's why it's being created, in that they are the only ones that we see who are using it to just keep themselves warm, or to heat up cans of food or whatever. There's those two examples that I already mentioned were both eating people, bad, in case we need to say it, and then there's one more that's a few pages after, because I didn't realize I needed to stop reading like 12 pages early, so there's one more fire related thing after, and that's also bad. So we very much could say that fire is not symbolizing like purity or anything. It's just because everyone has access to it. We see at least 3 different examples so far of people still having access to fire. So it's not the literal fire that's symbolic of something. It's how it's being used, right?
Yeah, and it's how it's being built as well. Like you're kind of keying into the stuff I'm trying to get like beneath and try to push out, right? Like it's that they build it from the land and it's not artificial and it's not in service of some evil thing. You know, you got to remember that like McCarthy is like he's a Western author. Like he writes contemporary Western fiction novels, and so for him, like the fire is this. You know, you think about the way that the fire is deployed in the Western, right? That's a place where if you come across a fire as the sun is setting, people say, hey, you know, come sit with us, eat with us. You share things, you tell stories, right? It's a place where community exists. And the boy and the man, to Pat's point, they're the only people that still understand this practice. And there's a you know, it's one of the first things that like Adam and Eve do when they, you know, get ejected from the garden, right? Is they have to build a fire because they're not warm for the first time in their entire lives, right? Like there's a I think for McCarthy there's a we can't understate the symbolic meaning of like building a fire with which to sit around, like, you know, in the Western farmstead, you know, the fire in the hearth and sharing a meal, right? It's so pregnant with meaning in the context of the Western, and I think it finds itself well located here with a sentence like "and we're carrying the fire." Like it's literal and it's metaphorical at the same time, and it's a question that exists within this book that you will never be able to resolve. Is like, which is the more prime reading of like fire's place? Is it about survival? Is it about community? Is it about meaning? Like it's just unresolvable. And I think that's like a really key and like exciting part of this book to me, because it pushes at all of those ideas at the same time. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm replaying Red Dead, but like coming across a fire and, you know, and sitting down and just someone telling a story, like, come on, man. That's the real shit.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense when you think about how his other works are very much like, yeah, more straight up westerns.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to try and squeeze in Blood Meridian if I can before our next session, just to kind of give you guys a bit more framework of like something similar that he's writing. But yeah, I mean, it's this kind of I suppose I should make a distinction as well. He's writing postmodern westerns, right? So they're westerns that are kind of questioning the efficacy of what remains of the West, and kind of looking at like the death of the West in a way. So he's not writing like straight up, you know, fistful of dollars type westerns, I guess.
Is sorry, a slight tangent. Is the Tommy Lee Jones's character from No Country for Old Men and his speech at the end about his dream, is that also how the book ends?
Ooh, I don't
that's
remember.
That's a great speech.
And
that's a great way to like wrap up your themes about post westerns as well. I fucking love that dream speech.
Knowing McCarthy, it's probably not a speech out loud, but it's probably something he thinks to himself as he's like walking away from something. Yeah. That's typically how he wraps up books, is like someone gets buried and then a character walks away and thinks something really pretty. Okay, no, that was good. I wanted to have the fire conversation because I think it's one of the conversations that happens during seminars that are taught about this book. And so many seminars will have a single reading that they take to be like the correct understanding. And I wanted to frustrate that a little bit to see what we could shake out. So that was good. Yes. Okay, so the next, so that they go to this bunker, but the way that this kind of happens is they go through this house, it's been completely torched, and, you know, McCarthy's really on one writing this section. You know, the guy finds a candle, but he's got nowhere to light it, and, you know, he has this just, the man is like on another level. He walked out in the gray light and stood, and he saw for a brief moment the absolute truth of the world. The cold, relentless circling of the interstate earth, darkness implacable, the blind dogs of the sun in their running, the crushing black vacuum of the universe. And somewhere 200 animals trembling like ground foxes in their cover. Borrowed time and borrowed world and borrowed eyes with which to sorrow it. Come on. Are you fucking kidding me? I will never write this well in my entire life. Borrowed time and borrowed world and borrowed eyes with which to sorrow it. Fucking hell. Like, the absolute tone that this single paragraph conveys, and what I like about it too is that it's not mournful, right? Like there's a kind of secular quality to this prose here where it's not like, oh, woe is me, like, you know, like pity is us or whatever. It's kind of sterile in its comprehension. And I think you get that through the blind dogs of the sun in their running. Like there's a quality of neutrality, and it's an elemental truth of the universe as opposed to something that he thinks or feels that is communicated here that I'm just astonished by.
Yeah. I like how it also, you can think of it as either like dissonant or resonant with you know, what he says to the kid about carrying the fire. Like this seems to suggest that, you know, he's not really honest when he says that to the kid. What he really thinks of the world is that, you know, everyone's running on borrowed time, everything's going to fizzle out, and that'll be it. Whereas, like, if you take your sort of more sterile, neutral reading of it, it's like, yeah, like he understands that, you know, like this world is not meant for him, but, you know, it could be the most he could do is try and set it up on good foundations for, you know, for the new people that are going to inhabit this world, which is the kid.
Yeah, which is so complicated by later on when the boy asks him, like, what are our long-term plans?
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know. And and it's so good because he's like, where did you hear that? Like, and again, it's like, well, surely he must have. Like, I love how complicated this all kind of becomes in the wash, right? Yeah. Jam? You look deep in thought.
I just had the realization that that's probably something he was remembering from when his mom was alive, and he overheard them talking, and she was saying, what kind of long-term plans do you think that there could possibly be?
Ooh, I love that,
because that's not something, like, the dad wouldn't talk about that after, you know, because he'd be talking out loud to himself, right?
Yeah, I love that. That makes it so much more tragic. Yeah, that's really good. I like that. All right, I guess I want to quickly talk about this really bizarre moment, and then we can maybe take a quick break and talk about the bunker. I was having fun when I was writing the summary, but I really like the way that, or I think it's notable, I should say instead, the way that so they go through this house, and they are literally starving to death, like in real time. Like walking is hard work. It seems like if the man sat down, he might never stand up again. Like it's that type of exhaustion and starvation. And he's walking across the yard, and he has this moment where he's just smelled gasoline, and he's like, oh, is that why I'm dizzy? And he starts to be like, how long till we die? Like, you know, is it 9 or 10 days? How long is it till we're done? And he's like testing the ground with his feet. And he comes back with a spade, and then he, you know, starts to dig, and it takes him forever because he's exhausted. And yeah, he uncovers this bunker. But I was thinking about this. I did that thing of like, man, like, if this was me, I would absolutely not be able to tell there was a bunker beneath my feet. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, if you've been looking through a million houses where there's absolutely nothing, I feel like you get pretty sensitive to the slightest indication of anything. If the ground is, gives a little there, then you're like, fuck it, I'm grabbing a shovel and seeing what's down there.
I see. You're saying it's like a Skyrim type leveling system where I've used perception so much that it's really high.
Yes.
I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
This was going to be one of those things where I asked JM though, because I feel like you would have friends that do and build things like this. Is this a thing? Can you like tell that there's something buried or like?
I've never had this experience before, so it'd be really tough for me to say definitively. But if you're walking over the ground and the ground sinks in, then there's something under there. First thought would be, oh, I'm about to be swallowed up by a cave, a sinkhole collapsing right underneath me. But if it's like solid sod, and that's not the case, then. But a lot of that is also like, what are you in a mental state where you're able to have all of those thoughts? Because he's definitely not. This is like his subconscious doing all of this thinking for him when he doesn't really have the capacity to put these thoughts together logically. Because the entire reason that he stopped walking in the first place was because he was dizzy and needed a break. But that was his subconscious feeling the ground give in 3 feet back. That's what stopped him. It wasn't the dizziness, right? So nothing about how that played off came across as anything unusual. I don't know that I would immediately locate a bunker with that, same ease. But it sounded realistic the way that everything played out.
Okay, I just thought I'd check because I have negative context to figure this stuff out.
I would just assume that if I was in America and I felt any patch of soft dirt, I'd assume there was a fallout shelter under there.
Yeah, it's a reasonable assumption.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's at least 111 volts around America, to my understanding. Yeah, 111. That we know about. There could be more.
The really interesting thing is the fact that it was sodded over, because that would indicate that this was not a bunker that was made for, like, there's a tornado coming, you got to run and get down there. This thing was meant to be hidden and kept safe for very long term, and I would think that they might have multiple of these things around their property, and this was not the main one. This was like a secondary or tertiary or whatever. So
well, it's certainly not the one where
where
the guns are stored. Like, that's interesting to me.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a really good argument for this not being the primary bunker, because you would assume that you wouldn't want to leave weapons around for someone else to possibly scavenge and then come after you with. So, I don't know, maybe the man will eventually have the thought, was like, oh, we should have looked around a little bit more, because there may have been other bunkers on that same property somewhere.
Well, I agree, there probably is more bunkers. But I thought it is like an interesting detail that possibly, applies some story there about how it was untouched, but the guy obviously poured a lot of like money, time, and resources into building this like insane bunker, and it's untouched. He never used it, but the guns aren't there, right? So obviously, like, something happened very quickly, and the immediate thing he thought of was like to take the guns, and they didn't have time to retreat to their bunker. So yeah.
Well, yeah, he ends up dead in the basement, right? During the end of the world.
Oh, is there a body? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
A corpse floating in the black water of the basement among the trash and rusting ductwork.
Yeah. Okay.
So like
Yeah.
that's
So what happened there?
well, I think that speaks to like how quickly the world ended, right?
Hmm.
And the absolute miracle it is that the man and the wife didn't get immediately incinerated, seemingly.
My reading there is that that was the prime bunker that the dude was trying to get to. Because I was going to say that you would want it to be either like your access would be like through your basement or right up next to your house, so you could immediately get, especially in like modern day, if you've got the money to build a bunker, like it's going to be in your closet or something. Like the entrance is going to be so close to where you are all of the time. So the fact that the dude was like found dead down in the basement makes me think like that there was an entrance, a tunnel, or whatever, to where his primary bunker would have been. What killed him, whatever.
Right. I guess you're imagining that the bit of narration we didn't get is that like the man looked past the piano on the wall where you play the 3 or 4 notes and it opens the thing to the bat cave. You know, like
Yep,
there's some hidden
pretty
entrance.
much.
Yeah.
And I'm also just getting into the man's head where like 3 weeks later, and he's like, oh my gosh, like what if there was another bunker in that basement, and that's why that homeowner was down in the basement and he was trying to get to it and I didn't think to go look for it.
Yeah, he does a lot of that where he like doesn't really realize something until later, or he doesn't think or give us a detail until later. Yeah. So that also wouldn't surprise me. I don't think that happens from memory, but that would be an interesting detail. All right. Should we take a quick break and then we can talk about the bunker itself, and then kind of the old man. Happy? Okay, cool. Well, we'll be right back after these messages to talk about the rest of this reading. Stay with us. If you like these handcrafted studies of genre fiction, please head over to zeroindent.com or patreon.com/zeroindent if you'd like to consider supporting us. Even if you just give us a follow on Patreon, that helps us out. Leave a comment, a like, and if you're in a financial position to do so, you can support us and get access to early content, additional videos, director's commentaries, audio diaries, and all kinds of different things we have coming up. It really makes a difference helping keep independent media crit alive. Once again, that is zeroindent.com or patreon.com/zeroindent if you'd like to support us. Welcome back. Hey, we're here. We're back. We're going to talk about the bunker now. And here's the tricky thing about this book, right? Is that I have literally, like, for the last, like, I don't know, hour and a half of our conversation, I've had, like, maybe 3 or 4 pages of notes. For the rest of this reading, I have, in totality, 3 dot points. Like, this book just really narrows down and just starts moving. We've kind of talked about the setup of the bunker, the things to really hone in on. I think we covered in the summary, which is that, like, he almost, I love the way that he almost thinks it's not real. And the description is so simple, right? Crate upon crate of canned goods, tomatoes, peaches, beans, apricots, canned hams, corned beef, hundreds of gallons of water in 10-gallon plastic jerry jugs, paper towels, toilet paper, paper plates, plastic trash bags stuffed with blankets. He held his forehead in his hand. "Oh my God," he said. He looked back at the boy. "It's all right," he said. And then the kid comes down. And I want to call out something that JM pointed out last episode, which is when he says, "Oh my God," here, God is capitalized this time. Like, anytime it's used in a good way, it seems to be capitalized, which is just noteworthy. And yeah, McCarthy has this described as the richness of a vanished world, which is a perfect encapsulation for this, 72 hours they spend, right?
I wonder if there's any meaning to where he says, "Oh my God," he whispered, "Oh my God, what is it, Papa? Come down. Oh my God, come down." So that's repeated 3 times, which is really relevant to Christianity, the threes.
Yeah, Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. Yeah. Jesus, Judas, Mary. It's kind of threes everywhere. I mean, the argumentation there of like why threes is so important in the Bible is that like 3 is the minimum number of things required to produce a pattern in the human brain. It's actually one of the arguments that one of my adversaries, Jordan B. Peterson, uses in his very terrible book about writing, where he goes, well, if the 3 is so important in all of literature, it's because it comes from the Bible. And it's like, brother, you're a psychologist. Shut up. So embarrassing.
What, instead of just like a natural emergent property of
of cognition,
the universe?
So dumb. Anyway, that book is ridiculous. Don't read it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This is a nice little section. As he says, they get to experience like reality as it was before the horrible world. I wonder how long it would have lasted them if they had just stayed, assuming that they didn't get killed by bandits. Because it's all canned stuff. There's no way to sustain it.
Yeah, this is a question.
I
right?
also
should they have left?
Yeah.
Right? Like.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I've got to talk about in relation to the bunker was the fact that they left it.
Yeah. So obviously, like, I feel like there's something more than practicality that's motivating him to go to the coast. There's obviously some religious dimension there.
Yes.
But yeah, like, and then also, he's very paranoid about people spotting it, which is it's. I like that aspect of this book about how everyone is as smart as the main character. Basically, everyone is as cunning, because he's like, he just barely finds it. It's covered in dirt, but then he thinks about it and he's like, yeah, like it's sort of out in the open. Like even if you're far away, you can see that there's a little ditch, like there's a little break in the ground, and like that would be enough for anyone in this world to come investigate it, kind of thing. Like. Yeah, I think he's like, I was also like pretty paranoid alongside him as they were staying in it the 3 days. I was like, is someone going to see it? Like, because, people always seem to show up at the most inconvenient times. So
when he seems to lack the ingenuity to think of a solution to this problem. Like he ends up putting like a mattress on top of it as like a kind of stopgap. But he's unable to think the problem of, can I make a camouflage for this? Right?
Which surely you could. Surely you could work something out, yeah.
Well, and this is the genius of the subjectivity of the book, is that surely you and I could, but he couldn't. Like, he's barely sane at this point. Like, he's been living on the road for 10 years. Like, he cannot think in logical sort of leaps and bounds the way that we can. And that's a really effective kind of mode that I think this section finds itself in, where the only way he can think this problem is to leave, right? And to your point about the religious thing, like they're traveling west to the coast, right? West in literature, unfortunately, because of imperialism, is one of these like symbols of goodness, right? That's why the elves go to the west. The man is from the west in Lord of the Rings. We see a bit of that kind of that Tolkienalia instinct transported here, I think, and framed on top of this, where even the risk of staying here and getting caught is not as potentially valuable as heading west and continuing this journey to the coast.
Wait, sorry, say that last part again.
So there's this, the notion of going west to the coast is more appealing than even the dangers that has right. With like starvation and everything like that. That's potentially greater than the staying here and the risk of being caught, right? Like he's putting one in front of the other, as he always does. Same with the waterfall.
Yeah,
right?
and like, to be fair, like there you could conjure up a sensible reason for that, which is basically that it's, as I said before, it's not sustainable. Like it would sustain you for a little while, but like eventually you'd run out and you'd maybe become too dependent on all the things that you had there, and if if you're actually trying to survive long term, you know, you do need to like keep moving, find somewhere that is sustainable. I can understand that.
Right. But I think the big
But
question.
but also that's probably not what's going through his head.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the other thing.
But also,
Yeah.
is that even possible, right? And this is the thing this book does really well. Is like, is it even possible that a place like that could exist? Kind of seems like no, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
There is a lack of children in this world, which is kind of interesting. Other than the Calamites, the unfortunate
Calamites,
Calamites. But yeah. But yeah, you know, like. But also, I kind of get the vibe that that's sort of what he's looking for, is like a community where there is children.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, he's kind of got the wife. This is the other thing, right? He's got the kind of phantom of his wife in the back of his head, being like, that doesn't exist anymore. Like, you're wrong about the world, and you think the world's wrong. And so I also think that he can't. There's a beautiful way that that he carries part of her subjectivity with him, because she charged him with this quest, and so he can't separate his thoughts from hers. Right? It's not.
That's there's a book called I Am a Strange Loop, which sort of talks all about that, how you carry other people's like consciousnesses in you, because when you understand how they think and how they would react to things, and how when you have a really good idea of their subjectivity, they sort of you carry them with you and they become you, and you experience things through their eyes as well as yours.
Right, and this is a very Catholic thought that's like very freighted. You kind of get this through Augustine initially, but this is a thing that shows up all over. You know, not to always talk about Gene Wolfe, but like it's very large in my head at the moment because I've been thinking about it with the Catholicism stuff. That's a book where like literally the main character, he has a perfect memory, and he goes through this ritual where he eats part of his previous lover. And because he has a perfect memory, what would otherwise be like a trip for the other people that consume it, he kind of has her living within his head as like a fully realized person. And their memories get confused, and at times characters have to be like, "You're not her. Like, you need to remember who you are." And there's this Catholic thing of like the ritual of the Eucharist and things like that. There's something. And this isn't my reading on Catholicism, right? I want to be really clear. I'm explaining the way that Catholicism has been understood by some theologians, which is this desire to have access to some otherworldly or other version of consciousness that we don't have access to, that will suddenly kind of solve the world and solve thinking the world. And I think that that gets shot through so much with like just the structure and the institution of the church. You go and you have this person once a week telling you these things and providing this perspective, that it's impossible not to think the world through that perspective in a certain way. And I kind of think that's all here if you do the work to make that reading. Yeah. Oops, just open Signal. Did not mean to do that. Okay, so I do have a question. Like, there's this exchange where the man and the boy are talking, and the man is like, "Hey, we're gonna have to leave," right? There's also some really nice stuff, like they bathe. The man like, shaves and cuts his own hair and stuff like that. And they're like people for a minute, and the little details are great. The man keeps putting the heater on slightly too high, so he keeps waking up sweating. That's such a McCarthy thing to add. That even this perfect, comfortable thing, he's thinking through the practicalities of the fact that a bunker doesn't have good circulation. Just brilliant writing. Little details like that I think are just ingenious. And what I like is the boy's like, "Oh, we're gonna get found out," and he's reassuring, like, no, like, no, they won't find us. And the boy goes, "They might find us," and he goes, "No, they won't find us." And I really enjoy the way that McCarthy is able to use the structure and the ordering of paragraphs to convey information, where they have this conversation and he's insisting to the boy that like they're not going to find us. And the very first thing he does after that conversation, like structurally, is he goes into the house, he finds a mattress, drags it on top of the bunker, and then carves fake bullets so his gun looks loaded. So he fully thinks they're going to be found, right? that's just communicated structurally. And it's such good writing, and such good understanding of what a novel can do for you as a medium, where if you put two paragraphs next to each other, they can produce new meaning. It's just a really canny understanding of like what the modern novel is capable of, right?
There was an interesting bit in there right when during the haircut part where I was thinking to myself, you shouldn't have done that. And then like 2 sentences later, the kid was like, "But aren't you going to get cold now?" And I was like, boom.
Yeah, it is pretty great. Yeah. This kid really delivering useful information too late.
I like how the kid doesn't know how to use a toilet. It's like, yeah, that checks out. Why would you?
Yeah, why would you need to potty train this kid? Yeah. Pretty dire. I have a gun question, because I don't know nothing about no guns. He makes this supposition that he might have been able to use the empty cartridges for the pistol and then reload the 45 cartridge. Like, is this anything, JM?
I also don't know enough to fully answer that, but the diameter of all of the different bullets is different, and it's like he's like, could I? Because he also talks about like shaving down the bullets, and could I shave down these larger caliber ones so that they'll be able to fit in my revolver? I gotta think that it would be too dangerous to try to do any of that. But also, if you're desperate, then I don't know. I have many people that I could ask if we want more definitive gun questions or ammo questions.
I guess I suppose I'm not looking for a straight answer. I was more kind of thinking like, are we to take this as like a reasonable thought, or is this like completely delusional? And it sounds like it's maybe a reasonable thought.
I also don't know how much we never get a sense of how familiar he is with firearms, do we?
Not really. Yeah.
Because this would be very much a thought that I would have, because I am not familiar with firearms. I think that if it were, one of my 5 friends who go out shooting all the time, like, they would never even think about doing this because they know you can't do this. Or vice versa, they might be like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly how to do that."
Right.
So,
which maybe implies that McCarthy is very familiar with firearms, which we kind of know about him from just like, biographically. So maybe you're right. Maybe he's trying to write this as someone who doesn't really know guns very well, trying to think this problem in a very basic way, or like in a simplistic way.
I'd have to imagine that like the shells or like the ammunition is like, like a millimeter off being able to fit into the chamber, because like the fuck, like shaving a bullet, like I don't know, I don't feel like there's much to shave there before you just like get to the actual bullet.
Well, he's talking about reusing, so he's regretting leaving the pistol cartridges behind, because what he supposes is that he could take the 45 ammunition and reuse the primer, so like the gunpowder, to basically reload the previously spent rounds. But he wouldn't be shaving the shaving stuff is him. That's where he's shaving the wooden bullets to be fake. He's not thinking of shaving the ammunition. He wants to reuse the primer in the previous in the 45 rounds to then reuse in the pistol cartridges. Which is a thing you can do, I'm pretty sure, because like you're basically replacing the lead that's within the bullet, which if you take out the primer, you could shave the lead down to fit within the pistol cartridge. And then if you can put the primer back on top and seal it, then you have a full bullet. Right? I said that so confidently.
Suppose.
It's I should text our old boss because he's a real gun guy. He would know. Yeah, he was in the army, so he's like one of them guys.
I
Shoots for
thought
recreation.
it was because he's grew up on a farm or something.
Well, that too.
That's the vibe I got.
Yeah. But like he's a gun guy to the extent where like we were on a work trip to, and we got stopped in security because there was gunpowder residue on his backpack. Because he'd been shooting that weekend.
Wow.
Yeah. And then a different trip to we both discovered that somehow he got. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I'll have to bleep this, but he got. We accidentally took from Brisbane to Melbourne through security because they just didn't get flagged, and he happened to have them in his backpack.
Jeez.
So, that's the type of gun guy that is.
Okay.
The primers would probably fit if he could get them out without ruining them. Shave the bullets to size with the box cutter.
Shave the bullets to size with the box cutter. Oh yeah, okay.
That was just me pointing. Yeah.
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 Okay. Listen, wait a second. Hold on. You have to read the previous paragraph too. While the boy slept, he sat on the bunk, and by the light of the lantern, he whittled fake bullets from a tree branch with his knife, fitting them carefully into the empty bores of the cylinder, and then whittling again. He shaped the ends with a knife and sanded them smooth with salt, and he stained them with soot until they were the color of lead. Oh no, you are right. Yeah, he is thinking of shaving the bullets to. I guess that's the lead within the bullet, right? That he's thinking of shaving to size to fit in the pistol cartridge, like the pistol, cartridge. Like the casing? I don't know enough about guns. This is such a confusing
So he's saying, okay, so he does have the spent shells.
No, he doesn't.
He's saying
He's
if he can
regretting.
whittle.
Like,
well, then what's he placing the bullet in?
He's
Just
not.
like-
He's wishing he could do this. So there's, there's two things happening. He makes fake bullets out of wood to make the gun look loaded, and then he's regretting. Like, because he saved the pistol cartridges, the empty ones,
Yeah.
but then they got lost with the cart when the cannibals took all of his shit. And he's thinking, "Fuck! I got these 45 rounds. I could have shaved the bullets down, and reused them. If I could get the primers off, I could have I could have bullets again. That's kind of his.
Yeah. I see.
Yeah. Anyway, we don't have to dwell on this. It was one of those things of like. It was a detail that really stood out to me as, particularly in the context of like the emotionality of this moment where he's reacting to the boy asking this question of like, are we going to get found out? And he suddenly goes through the kind of JM style logic of like, how do I solve this problem? And he lands on fake bullets, which does work, incidentally.
We have now harped on it so much that I have to know the actual answer, so I have messaged 2 different groups of people that are definitely going to know.
Perfect. Okay.
So we will have our answer in a moment.
We will have our answer. All right. Let's move on from the gun stuff, and when we get an answer, we will we'll get a live reportage from our man on the ground, J.M. Anderson.
Oh, wait, here's the first one. It's not a zombie, it's a moose. There you go.
Fuck you. All right. Okay. Well, if we're just gonna be mean, okay, I choose to believe it's a zombie. So, yeah, not unnecessary shade. Yeah, I mean, the other thing I had written down here is, the boy asking like what their long-term goals are. I've written in the marginalia, this kid is cooking, because it's such a good question. We don't know either, right?
No. Except for the vague thing about finding a community.
Yeah, and the coast seemingly is a thing that's going to be good.
I like his prayer that he does to the people, like very, very sweet, child, like innocent, like, he's like, oh, what does he say? He says, do you think we should thank the people? The people who gave us all this? Well, yes, I guess we could do that. Will you do it? Why don't you? I don't know how. Yes, you do. You know how to say thank you. The boy sat staring at his plate. He seemed lost. The man was about to speak when he said, Dear people, thank you for all this food and stuff. We know that you saved it for yourself, and if you were here, we wouldn't eat it no matter how hungry we were. We're sorry that you didn't get to eat it, and we hope that you're safe in heaven with God. He looked up. Is that okay? He said. Yes, I think that's okay.
Oh,
It's so sweet.
I was got emotional you reading that then, because yeah, that one really, that I was like misty reading that. It's so pure.
Mm.
Ugh.
Yeah, like the kid, like he just, he says, if you were here, like we wouldn't eat any of it. Like, I don't know. He's just got like such a, like morality about him.
Except
Right.
you never get the point of view of the man, because he was probably sitting there thinking to himself, yes, I would have killed them and we would have eaten their food.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But also I like the idea that like, and I was thinking about this literally because we spent too much time talking this week, JM, but one of the, like, an actual thought I had reading this was like, when would the boy have last needed to say thank you, if ever? You know what I mean? Like, is he teaching this kid manners in the apocalypse? Probably not. Seems unnecessary.
I feel like they say thank you to each other.
Maybe they do. It was a thought that crossed my mind of like, is this just a thing he hasn't had to do because they haven't seen people in so long, you know?
Especially because there's definitely the man is of the mindset that he owes the kid, that like this is his fault, that the kid's existence is his fault, whatever, however you want to read it. Like everything that in every way that he treats him, it's like he's saying he's sorry to the kid, if that makes any sense. Or at least that's how I'm interpreting, like, he gave the kid the Coke and didn't keep the Coke for himself because the kid deserves the Coke. I don't deserve it, the kid does. It's like all of these different things are like the man is saying I'm sorry, is how I'm interpreting it.
It's easier to live for the kid than for himself.
Yeah. Which is kind of what his wife says, right? That's like the thing that she charges him with. She's like, as long as he's alive, you'll still have a reason to keep going. But the second that he dies, you're done for. And yeah, he part of what's interesting about him leaving the bunker and insisting they leave is that they stay one night longer than he wants to. And we got to kind of we have to put this in conversation with what we talked about last episode, where he thinks of the dreams of his previous life as kind of death, or that they symbolize death in some way, or they have some relation to death. Because you get this passage where he goes, he woke again. He thought the rain had stopped, but that wasn't what woke him. He'd been visited in a dream by creatures of a kind he'd never seen before. They did not speak. He thought that they'd been crouching by the side of his cot as he slept, and then they had skulked away on his awakening. He turned and looked at the boy. Maybe he understood for the first time that to the boy he himself was an alien, a being from a planet that no longer existed, the tales of which were suspect. He could not construct for the child's pleasure the world he'd lost without constructing the loss as well, and he thought perhaps the child had known this better than he. He tried to remember the dream, but he could not. All that was left was the feeling of it. He thought perhaps they'd come to warn him. Of what? That he could not enkindle in the heart of the child what was ashes in his own? Even now, some part of him wished they'd never found this refuge. Some part of him always wished it to be over.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like that's like he's sort of like cheating himself by being content with just having tried up until the end. As long as he didn't like just give up. It's like that's what would like concern him. It's just like he wants it to end, but he wants it to end where it's not his fault, basically.
Right. And I love this idea of, and this is a really common theme in the, like, post-apocalypse as a genre, right? And apocalypse as a genre, is this idea of, like, in order to communicate that the previous world was good, you have to also bring into conversation the collapse of, like, the epistemic frameworks of the world and, like, society and things like that. And that's a burden that's so violent that it's like a really difficult question to resolve for some people. Obviously that was a big thing we talked about with Tyler in Station 11, and the way that he thinks about trying to kind of kill the past, or, you know, the way that he produces the ideology of, like, the pre-pan and the post-pan type thing. And again, like, I can't overstate how much Mandel is working in response to McCarthy, I think, a lot of the time, in that novel. And it's a question that she has, and it's a question that he has, because it is a tricky one, right? Like, if he wants to make this kid into someone who is capable of, like, carrying the flame, that necessarily means that he's going to have to, like, teach this kid about all of the things that he can never have and that are all lost. You know, the elves have gone to the west, and, you know, the light of the world is dimmed, right? Is it more of a burden to know, or is it better to not know, right? It's possible to know and to not know, right? As Miranda says.
Yeah, well, that's why he chooses not to give up, I suppose. Like how we see a little later, he gives in to, you know, the boy wanting to feed the old man and stuff like that. Like, yeah, when it comes down to it, he still has that mission of, like, making sure, yeah, the flame doesn't die out, the flame of the old world, when it really comes down to it.
Yeah, he's sort of charged with deciding the meaning of life, right? Like, that's ultimately, if you get down to brass tacks, like, that's kind of what he's doing on a daily basis. Yeah. And I don't, like, I still, like, I don't have a resolution on what I think is, like, the ethically correct thing. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's part of the joy of post-apocalypse to me as a genre, and part of why, you know, this unit has been so rewarding is that, like, these are questions that you will have different answers to at different different moments in your life, and and across different phases of who you are as a person. Yeah.
Really weird comparison that I just had was thinking about the book The Giver, and because it's like part of humanity that everyone else has forgotten, and are they better off not knowing the beauty of what was lost versus being told, but it's something they might not be able to even ever experience?
Yeah, you know, weirdly enough, the thing it made me think of when I was reading it was Wall-E, which is a film that's been top of mind for a lot of reasons to do with, like, the current, you know, technology thing we're all experiencing, and the kind of collapse of event stage capital. But one of the things I think a lot about in that regard is, like, the notion of this kind of virtual reality, the literal slop that these people consume, and then at the end of that film, you know, they return to Earth, and they have to, you know, they step into the real world for the first time. And I think there's this question of, like, the man kind of treats the apocalypse and the world around him as both virtual and not virtual at the same time. And he was virtual in the sense of Jameson there, right? To mean, like, it's sort of, he can never quite decide if it's real life or if it's some metaphorized thing that he has to deal with and overcome. He can never decide if, like, the decisions he's making are philosophical or if they're, like, essential and physical. And those two things become inseparable to him. And in doing so, he is unable to really see the, like, and except for these brief moments, right? The first time where he steps out of the bunker and he sees the world for the first time properly. This need he has to protect the boy and to carry the flame, it's, like, real and not real at the same time.
I have a semi-lengthy, in-depth description of an answer,
Okay.
which makes me wonder if it is like you said that McCarthy does know about guns and wrote something in there intentionally that would likely not work whatsoever. So this is from the Mythical Wes, but he loads his own ammo. So like what he shoots is stuff that he has done what this character is talking about like making your own bullets. And he said like if you're doing this with simple tools, he doesn't know if he'd get it right 1 out of 10,000 times, because it takes a press that can do really high PSI in order to get everything in the bullet compacted the right way and everything. So getting the primers out takes a press with a lot of PSI, keeping them intact, and getting the bullets to the correct caliber to reload would be extremely challenging. Just sitting the bullets into the casing takes a press with all that PSI. So basically the answer is no. What the man was hypothesizing here would not work.
But it's like the right idea.
It sounds like, well, actually, maybe that was on purpose. If it sounds like it's something that would have been possible in modernity, in a time when they still had those tools.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you came to my house, well, not my, if we went to Wes's house now, he could do it for us because society still exists. So it's like the man has a thought of something that he wants to do, but society doesn't exist for him to do it anymore.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. There you go. Resolved. Mark as maybe it's on purpose. Yeah. Okay. I mean, the next thing I have is I've just highlighted a particular sentence that I thought was really evocative. This is where he's thinking about, he's like packing the carts and that they're sort of preparing to leave. And he describes the hatch thusly: the faintly lit hatchway lay in the dark of the yard, like a grave yawning at Judgment Day in some old apocalyptic painting. And it just really like a grave yawning at Judgment Day, right? I thought that was really evocative. Yeah, I don't have anything clever to say. I just really like that sentence.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, a lot of Rapture stuff in this middle part, I feel.
A lot of Rapture stuff.
And
Well, I think because they have safety for the first time, right? So he's kind of forced to reflect on, like, in having something, he has to reflect on the fact that they haven't had something for so long.
Hmm. And just the fact that, like, it's all, like, everything's, like, preserved perfectly. Like, it's all here, and they've come from a world where there's nothing. And it's, like, really sort of draws your attention to the contrast between how little there is in the world anymore, how everything has disappeared, you know, like how everything has gotten raptured.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like it's producing a contrast by not. It's producing contrast, and that's kind of part of his thought of like, I wish we hadn't found this refuge, is because it's just forced him to think about all this stuff again.
Which also, like, I guess it speaks to maybe the great deal of like resolution or resolve rather that the man has in not wanting to stay there. He's like, you know, basically like this will soften us if we stay here. We just need to take what we can, take what we need, and move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
That decision hurts me.
Say more?
Well, I'm trying to... I guess I'm arguing logic at a point where it seems like the man is doing something very illogical. So maybe I'm supposed to be having this reaction of... why aren't you staying in the bunker with the food? You just have this like gut feeling that you need to leave, and you know, within 2 weeks or whatever, they're starving again. I don't know if we ever get a full count on how much food is there, Like, if they could have survived the entire winter in that bunker and then headed out in the spring. Like, fundamentally, nothing has changed. Whatever they think they're going to find on the coast will still be there in the spring. And theoretically, a lot of the people that they would have had to worry about on the road will now be dead, because the cannibals are going to have a lot harder time surviving the winter because their food source is just getting more and more depleted, right? So I'm having all of these like logical thoughts that the man was having in the first part of the book, but now he's not having them. He's just like, we have to leave safety. We have to leave the fortress. We got to get out of here.
But he doesn't see it as safe. Right?
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't see the... I don't see the argument. It's like pretty much well, it would take a lot of work to be able to get them out of there, to be able to like smoke them. If someone were trying to get out, to get them out, it'd take a lot of work to be able to smoke them out, having to find out where all of the, pipes are venting out to and all of that kind of stuff. With one like makeshift spear, they could defend one single stairway coming down. So I think odds of survival of defending yourself in that spot with enough food are drastically more than out on the road where you have no food and no shelter and blah, 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 blah. So that was a huge point of distress for me. Was getting to that point and like internally screaming at them, why are you leaving? You need to stay there.
I mean, I just have to tell you, that's what the book is doing, right? Like,
yeah.
And that's the trickiness, is like you have to experience him make this choice, and you and yourself, because I definitely had this where I was like, this is the wrong decision. Why is he doing this? But also, he kind of feels that as well. Like, there's this part of him. Every choice he makes is a bad choice because there are no longer any good choices.
Well, I would say that like I was pretty paranoid that someone was going to show up. Especially like I thought, in another book that wasn't written by McCarthy, on that third day where he decides to stay when he was originally going to go, that's when the intruders would show up, right?
Yes.
I was waiting for that to happen, but it didn't. Yeah.
Didn't we just read or watch something where that happened? Where they in Station 11, where they stay an extra day for Kirsten's play, and that's what gets Frank killed.
Yeah.
Again, fuck, man. Mandel, I mean, I understand that in the book that doesn't happen because Kirsten isn't with them during the apocalypse, but again, response to the road, Station 11 certainly is, and I will not be convinced otherwise.
That's very true.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing I have is this old man, and the fucking bizarre conversation they have that we don't have to dwell on too much.
I love this old man character.
It's so wild. Yeah. So the way that, can you set this up for us, Pat? Like, how like, what's your understanding of how this happens and what this means?
So, the kid and they're flush full of supplies. They got their big trolley of cans and shit like that, and they're on the road again. And then they see this person up ahead of them. They do what they always do. They stay behind. They stalk him a little bit. You see if he's a lure, he's a bait. If there's any other people that's going to come. I think they somehow assess that that's not the case, and they go up to him, and he's like a blind old man. He's somehow kicking. The old man, like, clearly, he's like seems more scared of them than they are of him. And then the kid insists that they look after him, basically. And the man agrees, or like he obliges because you know, it's a moment of dilemma. It's like, do you risk your safety to feed this old man, or do you, you know, risk putting out the fire by the fire in the kid, and you know his moral goodness by not, you know, taking this chance to do a kindness to someone. So yeah.
Yeah, and the kindness is so freighted because this old man's gonna die anyway. Like it's such a it's such a tragic like, and like the conversation the man and the old man have, like it's so clear that this old man has lost his mind in some way. Yeah, but like he does it for the boy. He does it for the boy and for the world that was, knowing that it's the wrong thing, like actively knowing that this is a mistake. And he has to sort of say to the kid, like, you know, we'll feed him and he can stay at our camp tonight, but we're not renegotiating this. Like, we're not having this conversation again tomorrow where you try and broker a new deal and you can't keep him. You know, and it's funnily enough, it's the man who looks back at the old man and the boy just kind of keeps going, right? So there's some lingering regret, I think, within him, maybe.
I mean, yeah. What do you think, like, is the deal with this old man? Because I think that from the way he reacts, you know, and he says, "Oh, you know, I have nothing in my bag. You can look through it." You know, like basically the old man's like, "You can do whatever you want to me, and I can't do shit about it." That sort of suggests that people have just left him alone because there's no reason to kill him, or like there's nothing to fear from him, and like he doesn't also have anything, so there's nothing to take from him. So like you may as well just leave him. Like that's the way this guy has survived, and he's also blind, it seems. So you know, like really no threat at all. And yeah, this old man is just like been passed by like a lot of people, and yeah. But also, yeah, I guess the main like sort of main crux of his inclusion in the story here is to just like confound the man and child's sense of mission. Because yeah, as we say, like if by stopping and doing him a kindness is like, you know, part of like the man's moral mission from God, the man is just like, you know, just super impartial and like unaffected by this act of generosity. And yeah, and you know, he like he doesn't give them really any positive or negative like expressions. he just is. He may as well just be like an animal or a plant or something. And yeah, I feel like it's sort of like it troubles the man a bit. He's like, you know, he's like, what, like no, not necessarily even gratitude, just like not giving us any sort of like valuable human interaction, really. Like, yeah,
yeah, right. Because even when like the man says stuff, he just kind of agrees to everything. Like there's the bit I really like is when they're about to leave him. And the man says, "How old are you?" And then the old man says, "I'm 90." And then he goes, "No, you're not." The old man says, "Okay." And the man says, "Is that what you tell people?" The old man says, "What people?" And then the man says, "Any people." And he says, "I guess so." Like, there's just this absolute lack of conviction from this old man in literally anything. It's, yeah.
There's also the bit about him refusing to give his name because he didn't want the world to hold that power over him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like the old man is sort of a mirror to the man. Like he you know, just like how would you sorry, I'm trying to he is just so like disassociated from the world. He has no interest in being a part of the world, basically, this old man. because, and he's not hostile toward the world. It seems he's just like resigned and given up, and um, and that's probably what the man would be without this conviction to keep a fire in the boy.
When I think blindness is really important to bring up here, right? This old man is blind. We start the book with this kind of blind creature across the lake, and the man constantly thinks that if he gives in to these dreams of the past, that he's gonna go blind. Whether he means literally blind or figuratively blind, right? And that in the previous section, we just had a moment where he finally sees the world for exactly how it is for the first time in a long time. I don't think that we can. I think we have to acknowledge that part of the mirror or part of the foil that's being constructed here is this use of blindness. And this kind of, he's like a pitiful, he's not even worthy of pity, right? That's how hollowed out this old man is, right? And also, I just want to say this, because if I don't, I'm going to get a comment. This man's name is Eli, and he's a blind man. And one of the films that we're going to cover for this unit is The Book of Eli, which is about a blind guy in a post-apocalypse, and it comes out 3 years after the film adaptation of this. Anyway, just saying, this is clearly the point of origin of that film, is this single little section. Just something to be aware of.
And that movie is very interested in Christianity and the apocalypse, isn't it?
It's why we're covering it in this unit, because I think I think we're covering it directly after this book from memory.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the inclusion of this old man is like weird on a lot of levels, and one of them that we've talked around is the fact that he's still alive while walking through a country filled with cannibals that he can't see. And like, he's on the same road that these two are walking down, where the road was being watched by cannibals like 10 miles back, but the old man got through just fine. And he also says that, like, the man asks him like how he's still alive or whatever, and the old man just like shrugs and is like, people give me food. But no one in this entire book has been human. So why are they treating this old man in that, manner of civility that doesn't exist anymore? Or has he just been like joining up with cannibals every once in a while? Because that seems to be the only way to live in this world. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and just like, truly, I don't know. He's a character that a lot of people will point at as part of the framework of the boy isn't real, and this is, this man is hallucinating the whole time. Because this old man is so unlikely and doesn't really make any logical sense in this world that, it's another thing people gesture at.
And then when they first meet him, I thought this was interesting. I said we're not robbers, said the boy or the man, and the old man responded, "What are you?" They'd no way to answer the question. Privately to themselves, they've constantly been saying, "We're not the bad guys, right? No, we're the good guys." And now they have someone actually ask them, okay, and he says, "Okay, so you're not robbers, what are you?" And they don't say we're the good guys. And I found that so odd. It was like, it's intentionally said every other time except for the one time when they're directly asked. And this would have been the spot where the little boy is proudly saying, "We're the good guys." But he doesn't say it.
Right, because they don't necessarily believe that. It's a thing they keep saying to each other to keep them going, but to what extent they actually believe they're the good guys is like an open question. And the way that he actually ends up responding a little bit later to the old man is he says, "We are the prophets." And the old man is like, "I don't understand what that means." And he goes, "What if I told you the boy is a god?" like he has time to think about it, and then he comes, and then he does start to explain some of how he thinks out loud, and the old man cannot follow any of it. And so I think it's this question of like, to what extent does the man believe any of these things he's thinking and saying to the boy, and to what extent is all of that a kind of virtual device he's using to keep himself going? And the book doesn't really have an answer to that. But I think that's the point of why he doesn't immediately say, "Oh, we're the good guys." Also, the other thing you got to think about, right? If you want to be like cold and logical about it, is you don't want to give this old guy any fucking information about who you are and how you think, because the cannibals are behind you on the road, and if they pick this fool up and they interrogate him about you, and you said we're the good guys, we've given the game away to the cannibals that you may not be dangerous, or that you might not shoot on sight, right? So you can also read like a cold practical version of this, of like any information that you give away about yourself in this situation is liable to bite you in the ass later.
Another notable sentence is just a few paragraphs after that, and it's the man deciding that they're going to give the guy food. He looked down at the old man. Perhaps he'd turn into a god, and they to trees.
Ugh, that's such a good sentence. Fucking hell. Come on, man. Come on. God, he could write a goddamn book, can't he? Fuck me. I love this so much. Can you read that again?
He looked down at the old man. Perhaps he'd turn into a god, and they to trees.
God.
Yeah, the man thinks in, like, he has a very figurative, like, sort of, mythological way of thinking.
Yeah. God. I'm just obsessed with some of the individual sentences in this novel. It's like, yeah, say what you will, there's a reason why McCarthy won every fucking award. I mean, he won the Pulitzer Prize for this book for a reason, right? It's just
I feel
outrageous.
like, lines like that are, to me, read as like little intrusive thoughts that aren't relevant. Like normally, when you'd write a story, you wouldn't include stuff like that. But like, he's like, no, this is like super important texture.
Yeah, and part of it is these constant intrusive thoughts conflate and confound your understanding of like what the book is about. And they're deliberately not solvable. And what it feels like is and this is I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm saying this is the feeling it conveys. It conveys the feeling of McCarthy sitting at a typewriter and kind of channeling something mystic as he's writing these words, right? Obviously, that's not what's happening. He's a guy in time writing a book, but that's the conveyance that it has. And it again, like it conveys this kind of alien thing that the man is. Like he's a man out of time and place and space.
Just imagining the Alan Wake silhouette of him on the typewriter.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
I kind of think that the old man is very canny, actually. That's the way I read it, is that he actually does have all his marbles, but he's being deliberately confounding. Just like, sort of out of spite for the world a bit. Like he's... Yeah, that's
kind
how
of what
I
I thought
read
too,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. Because like he answers some questions very like lucidly.
Yeah.
And then some other questions, it sort of appears like they're just questions that he just doesn't want to answer. So he just like, he says some silly answer.
Right. The thing that I think really sinks that shot for me is when he says, "I never thought to see a child again. I didn't know that would happen." And the man says, "What if I said that he's a god?" And then the old man shook his head. "I'm past all that now. Have been for years. Where men can't live, gods fare no better. You'll see. It's better to be alone. So I hope that's not true what you said, because to be on the road with the last god would be a terrible thing. So I hope it's not true. Things will be better when everybody's gone." And then later on, everybody. Sure, we'll all be better off. We'll all breathe easier. Like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, it's very clear to me, to your point, that like he sees the world very clearly. When we're all gone at last, then there will be nobody here but death, and his days will be numbered too. He'll be out on the road, there with nothing to do and nobody to do it to. He'll say, "Where did everybody go?" And that's how it will be. What's wrong with that? The imagery of this emptied out world, and the only person, the only figure treading the road with nothing to do is death, and his days will be numbered too. Like, it's difficult to it's difficult to convey the feeling of reading this book when you get sections like that. I can see so clearly in my mind what this is trying to evoke, like the imagery that that McCarthy is trying to put forward here, and it's so simple. And this, when we first read the pull quote that's on the back of this Picador version about McCarthy doing the most a modern novel can do here. This is that stuff, right? Sentences like that convey such a rich and vivid image off the back of this bizarre exchange that clarify this old man's perspective. This is what a novel can do that other mediums can't do, right? This is what film and television, visual storytelling, mediated by images and sounds, can't do this kind of thing because it doesn't have the same sensory experience of reading the words on the page and just having that like psychically projected into your brain from this book. It's such a unique quality of what McCarthy can do as an author.
You can get a lot more imaginative with your abstractions just with words than images are very, very solid and very, there.
Exactly. Anyway, that's just a quick aside about the meaning of literature and life. What else have I got on this? Anything else in the old man, JM? Because you kind of were prodding at that a little bit, I think, to make us interrogate him a bit more.
No, I think we touched everything.
Okay, well, there's really only a couple more details in this reading, right? They're kind of starving to death again very quickly, as JM kind of already alluded to. They come across a train, and again we get some of the kind of thinking of the man about him being an alien to the boy. If they saw worlds, what they knew was this. If they saw different worlds, what they knew was the same. That the train would sit there slowly decomposing for all eternity, and that no train would ever run again. I just love the sentence, decomposing for all eternity, and that no train would ever run again. Oof. Yeah, this world is just empty of any hope.
I like the implication as well that that train this was an apocalypse train as well. Like, people got this up and running after the apocalypse. They tried to do something with it, but then it just like ran out of whatever there, and then it just got abandoned, and then it's probably gonna sit there forever.
Yeah. And I think it gestures nicely at the thinness of reality as well, and the thinness of society in a way that the rest of this book doesn't do that often, right? Like, it's much more concerned with like the bleakness of this, as opposed to, because you then get that followed by a paragraph where he's then reflecting on like cities becoming these places where looters live, and it's where the cannibals live, and they'll eat your children, and the kind of the world has gone, and this physical this is like an omen of what was. Out on the roads, pilgrims sank down and fell over and died, and the bleak and shrouded earth went trundling past the sun, and returned again as tactless and as yet unremarked as the path of any nameless sister world in the ancient dark beyond. That's some Tolkien shit right there.
I found it really, another heartbreaking thing was the kid forgetting to turn off the gas stove.
Ugh.
And he's like, feels really guilty about it. And then the man's like, no, it wasn't your fault. And the kid's like, oh, but it was my fault.
Yeah, because he didn't turn off both valves.
Yeah.
And it's presumably what gets the man sick.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
It's without the heat. That was kind of how I read that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Because the bit we end on is where he's sick and he starts to like have dreams of the past again. And he starts to see this as like a sign that he's dying, right? To what we've been talking about before with like blindness and the old world kind of coming on unbidden. And yeah, he like thinks of this moment where he's in like another country. And there's like a particular moment where he just thinks of like a random woman. Thinks about books. Yeah, and it's really it's kind of it's literally where we end our reading. It's quite confounding. To like what we're supposed to make of it. But yeah, this is him dying, right? For real this time. Yeah.
I like the details of they like in the early days of the apocalypse, they'd find a lot of cans around. Just people desperately trying to communicate with 1 in a million chance if they're someone they knew past it or something.
Yeah, and he's like he calls them like which is unfortunately age poorly, like gypsy symbols and stuff on rocks.
Mm.
Jam is just reading the book now. It's hard not to do. I have to be honest with you. This book has an electric kind of quality to the line by line prose. But yeah, I mean that's everything I had. Is there anything that you guys want to touch on before we wrap up?
Don't think so.
Page 187. Nope.
Okay, heavy stuff. Yeah, so we kind of end here in a similar place to the end of Act 1 where things are real bad. It seems like he's legitimately going to die here. Possibilities are collapsing, and to James' point, I guess in our first recording, right? I do feel part of the challenge of this book is it's difficult to imagine this having a happy ending. And that's the quality of the novel and that's the texture of the novel, but it also does, I kind of get how that can be a little bit difficult to have to kind of keep engaging with. So I have some empathy for that position, especially with how much work this book does to make you feel so much, and all of the things that you're feeling are tragic and challenging, right? Yeah. It's tough. Yeah, next time we're reading to the end of the book. So from 199 to the end. And then our I think what we're covering after that is it Book of Eli. Let me check the show notes. Hold on. I've closed that tab. You guys vamp while I do that.
After part 3.
Okay. I think we're going to have a lot of stuff to say about that film because it takes the Catholic thing and it really takes it up to 15 and tries to do some stuff with it that I'm sure we'll have some complicated thoughts about. Yeah, very excited about that. If you'd like to support us, you can head to patreon.com/zeroindent. Supporting us at the $5 tier unlocks the bonus episodes of this show, where we watch and talk about the supplementary materials. The next thing on the Patreon bonus feed will be us talking about the film adaptation of The Road. Free Patreon subscribers gain access to the Zero Net Patreon chat, where you can send us questions and ideas for future episodes directly, or you can DM me on Patreon or Blue Sky if that's your preference. Any support you give us helps us keep making thoughtful, independent media criticism, an important practice to preserve in an age where context is defined by algorithms. We appreciate all of our Patreon subscribers who help us continue to make the shows and the articles that shape Zero Intent. Because it's a really fun thing to do, and we love doing it, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy to make this thing happen. So, yeah, we appreciate any support you can give us. And if you're not in a financial position to do any of that, just tell a friend you think might enjoy it. We don't do any advertising outside of our own shows, so that's how we grow and find new listeners that enjoy thinking about genre fiction. That's everything I've got. Jam, got a joke to end on, lighten the mood? Anything?
Oh, no. No, sir.
Shit.
I do not.
Damn. Huh. Well, this book may not have it might have a happy ending. That's possible.
Oh,
I
okay.
hope so.
I could tell a terrible story about myself. So it's about printers, and I could not get my printer here to work for the life of me. Spent like an hour troubleshooting it. Nothing would work. Uninstalled the drivers, did all of the things. Nothing could work. I'm getting ready to take a baseball bat to the printer and get a new one. Turns out, if you're running a VPN, you can't connect to stuff in your house.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it was that simple.
It
was that simple.
Printers are truly like the most cursed physical object. They are like the embodiment of capitalism. Like they exist to chew up toner. It's when I needed to buy a new printer 6 or 7 years ago when I was still printing things, it was cheaper to buy a new printer than it was to replace the ink cartridges. Like it's just a scam. Yeah.
Fully, yep.
And they break all the time. If you ever worked in an office where there's printers, they never work. Ever. Yeah. So that kind of became a bit of a downer. Anyway, I guess
It's supposed to just be laughing at me.
I know. There's an Austin McConnell video where he talks about printers, and he literally at the end of it does take a sledgehammer to his printer. It's a very cathartic video, so go watch that to lighten your mood after this. But as always, it's just the end of the show. It's not the end of the world. Zero Indent is an independent publication dedicated to studying works of genre fiction, brought to you by our subscribers. Head to patreon.com/zeroindent to learn more and consider supporting us. Our theme song is The Swan by Alon Peretz. Our podcast cover art is by Crystal Hatay. Everything else is written, directed, and edited by me, DC McNeil. You can find our merch and books at underink.press and everything we do at zeroindent.com.
I love that the brainstorming for the best way to get the child to survive is what type of alcohol do we bring?
Yeah, this is Queensland brother. Come on, man. Y'all Americans don't know how to do it, let me tell you.
Oh, my word.
Why is your camera so crazy? Is it because it's different every time?
It's artistic. It's artistic, bro.
It's not the A word I'd use for that song. Alright. I need to rotate that. How do I... Oh, shit. How do I do that? Hang on.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It's only mildly...
Discord does fuck with my Audacity settings. It's much quieter before I joined Discord, and then it's like a lot louder now.
That might be a driver priority thing. Is it possible, and I realize this is apparently too much to ask, is it possible for you to adjust the tilt, at least? So that you're not at a crazy Dutch angle?
Yep, we both... Pat was like, I really like that. David's not going to stand for it.
It's not that I don't like it, it's just that you're not David fucking Lynch. Yeah, that's fine. That's better.
There? Is that straight?
It's straighter, which is what I was looking for. This is where I have to convince you to expense a tripod purchase. They're like $20.
The tripod is not necessarily the problem.
Here we go.
And I can't remember if I've told this... I don't know if I've told this story on stream, so maybe we should just make sure we're all recording.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm always rolling.
But yeah, we discovered this in the midst of filming our first, like, quote unquote legitimate production. And we're like one day we're like reviewing the dailies, and everyone is suddenly talking about like, why is every angle crooked? And it was at that point, when I was in my 20s, when I found out that I go through life with my head slightly tilted to the side, and I never knew it. No one had ever called me out on it. So every single shot, I have the camera like tilted just a little bit, because that's how I see life.
Oh, hang on, I'm gonna have to get my tripod to show you something just to make a point.
Yeah, I know that they like have levels, or some of them do. Like one of mine does, but then the other two don't.
I also tilt my head a lot, and I'm trying not to do it as much.
Yeah, well, after that event, I started trying to, but it's also really hard to figure out because I don't have a level in my head. So I'm like, which?
Yeah, generally it's like the things around you in the ground, things level. But I suppose it is a bit hard to tell when you're looking down at things.
All I could find was my 4 tripods that don't have bubble levels on them, so that really is. I was looking for some vindication here. That is not it. Yeah. I never get what I want. But the point is, most.
Well, I mean, I was with you.
Yeah, most tripods have a
Like
bubble level
our
on
first
them.
equipment was all the cheap. Yeah. The first equipment we used was all like cheap hand-me-downs and stuff. So like my 2 tripods, like one of them is like 20 plus years old. That was my dad's, and the other one is like 30, 40 plus years old. That was my granddad's. They don't have no levels. Definitely no levels.
Yeah, you've got like the Vietnam War type tripod game.
Yeah. And the nice one that is set up over here that is actually on like a little dolly system and everything, and it does have the bubble thing. I didn't get that until years and years later.
Well, this is the thing, is I've seen some of the test shots from you on your project, and I'm like, you know how to produce, but for some reason every week on the podcast it's different angles. It's this fucking little bendy arm fucking tripod nonsense. Listen, folks, and this only people that listen to the end hear this kind of like back matter stuff. But I just want you to know this is what I'm dealing with. This is the vibes I have to contend with every week, and I have to come up here and deliver to you a program. So, who's the more put upon? I'll leave that question to you.